One man, against two national financial collapses, stepped up and saved America, twice. His name, J.P. Morgan. How he did this, you ask? In 1893, the U.S. was facing a depression the likes of which never experienced before. After several decades of continued growth and unchecked investments, the bubble burst, and the American economy was plunged into chaos. Stocks plummeted, losing almost half their value. Thousands of businesses closed down, hundreds of banks went bankrupt, and the unemployment rate skyrocketed across the country. At this point in time, America didn't have a central bank that could salvage the situation. Scared off, foreign investors cashed in their American bonds in exchange for gold. America always kept about $100 million worth of gold bullion on hand to back the dollar. But with how things were going, this gold reserve was bit by bit getting exhausted. By 1895, most of the gold was gone, and the U.S. was in danger of defaulting on its loans at any moment. The situation was extremely dire. America's only card was selling more bonds to Americans, but this wasn't going to work nearly as fast as it needed to. It is at this point that J.P. Morgan knew something had to be done, and fast. So he went to see President Cleveland at the time with a proposal. His idea was to form a private syndicate consisting of the most prominent bankers in the country who would work together with foreign investors to shore up America's gold reserve. His syndicate offered to purchase $65 million worth of 30-year gold bonds, using 3.5 million ounces of gold. Thanks to an old Civil War statute, President Cleveland was able to approve this without needing approval from the Congress. Cleveland signed the agreement, and John wired his men in New York and told them to act. And in just 22 minutes, they bought out all the gold bonds. This had an immediate effect, calming the volatile financial market. John had almost single-handedly saved the American economy, but J.P. Morgan's legacy wasn't sealed just yet. Less than 15 years later, another crisis would test him. In 1907, the country found itself in yet again another financial crisis, which led to several banks being on the verge of bankruptcy. This led to hordes of people queuing up around the block to withdraw their money from the bank. The government literally had to order bank tellers to deliberately count the money slower to slow down the withdrawal rate. This was because if everyone withdrew their money almost all at once, it would have been catastrophic. Now, the president at this time was Roosevelt. Roosevelt and J.P. Morgan didn't really like each other, but despite their mutual disdain, Roosevelt knew one thing: only J.P. Morgan had the financial muscle to stop this disaster. So, Roosevelt called on J.P. Morgan to salvage the situation. John summoned dozens of the leading financiers and leaders of the nation's biggest banks and trusts to join him in his private library and decide on the best course of action. John's plan wasn't that different from the last time he did it. It was essentially to spend a lot of money where it was needed the most. He suggested that they invest in their smaller competitors. John concluded that although some banks would inevitably fall, others could still be saved. They all agreed with J.P. Morgan's plan, and so he and his associates deposited giant sums of money in a number of banks so that they would be able to pay their depositors and avoid declaring bankruptcy. With Roosevelt's approval, the U.S. Treasury also contributed $25 million, showing the level of trust and respect the president had for John's business sense. John's plan worked, and just like that, yet another economic disaster was averted, all thanks to John. J.P. Morgan wasn't just a businessman, he was a force that shaped America's financial destiny. Twice, when the country teetered on the edge of ruin, he stepped in, not as a politician, not as a government official, but as the one man powerful enough to hold the economy together. Love him or fear him, one thing remains. His name is etched in history, forever synonymous with power. But how exactly did J.P. Morgan rise to such untouchable power? Subscribe to Pillars of Power to uncover the story.